I bear witness that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ and the Mahdi at his right hand. And I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine reminder and warner and the Messiah that's in our midst today. It is in their names that I greet my family with the greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, brother. How are you this
Walaikum salam.
I'm doing
Walaikum
wonderful.
salam, sir.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Greetings to everybody. How are you, Sister Cheryl?
Very well.
Very well. Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir.
So I see Sister Joy is with us, Sister Pam, Tamala.
Awesome.
Oh, Brother Camille. Brother Camille's in the house. Okay. I see you,
How you
brother.
doing, brother? Salam alaikum, brother.
Walaikum
We
salam.
got it. We had to talk behind the lines.
Yeah, I know, brother. I know.
Yes, sir.
Walaikum salam. I keep hearing reports, brother. I keep hearing reports. They tell me a brother is soldiering in the city here.
Yeah, we got to talk, brother.
Uh-huh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's see who we got. We got Sister Dorana, Sister Tina. We got Brother William. We have a Brother Martin Banks.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam. Who is that? Brother William?
Yes, sir. That was Brother William.
Okay. We got a Sister Roberta.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Assalamu
salam.
alaikum, sir.
I sure would like to see your smiling faces at least once. That way I can put a name to a face. Okay. I pray Allah that the little presentation that we have tonight will be mentally stimulating. Before we get started, however, I think it was Sister Tina. Did you have something you wanted to share regarding that number 9 from Wednesday? Who was it that had wanted to share something about the assignment from Wednesday?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. It was me, but I was. Can I do it on Wednesday?
Well, I might not be able to do it Wednesday. Unfortunately, I got to work on Wednesday, so I'm not sure if I'm even going to be able to have the meeting on Wednesday.
Okay. Well, in brief, it took me to viewing How to Give Birth to a God by the minister, because I just want to make sure I had the assignment correct, is in regards to the number 9 representing the woman. How did the number 9 represent the woman regarding the number 9, the product of the number 9 always reverting back to itself, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so the number 9 with the number 1, the 1 representing Allah God, the number 9 representing the woman. What I see is that if the woman is properly connected to Allah God, as in the number 19, whatever product, whatever offspring she has will revert back to itself, which is to the number 9, which is connected properly to the number 1 in 19. And that's completion.
Mm-hmm.
So.
One thing I think Mother Tanetta had mentioned this once before, and I'm paraphrasing, but when you take the 1 and the 9 and add them together, you get 10, which represents a new beginning or a new cycle. So when the Black woman reconnects with the God, then that represents a new cycle that brings all the other numbers into being once again.
And also when I did that and adding 1 and the 9, that was the odd and the even as well, I saw. Because we talked about odd and the even last week. And so 19 is the odd, the 10 was the even.
Okay. Anyone else before we get started? All right. Let's see. Is this thing gonna work the way I want it? Or do I gotta change it? No, I gotta change this. I don't like this. Let me convert this back. Go back here. Go back here. Yeah, this is not gonna. This is not gonna work for me. Okay. Does everybody see that on the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we start by looking at a verse from the Holy Quran. And this pretty much will be the foundation for everything that we deal with, because, you know, the Holy Quran, the miracle of the Holy Quran is that no matter what truth exists in the world, whether it be scientific, mathematical, it's already in the Quran somewhere. We just have to study the book that we have been given and find that truth in there. Up to this point in the books that I've been reading with regards to Dianetics and the different levels of Dianetic science and survival, when you look past the words and you look at the principles, many of the principles that I've seen in Dianetics thus far can be found in the Holy Quran. And again, this is not to take anything away from the work that L. Ron Hubbard has done, because the work that he has done is monumental. But it goes back to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan already told us, and he said that this wisdom belongs to us. And in fact, we already have it. We just have to dig deeper into our study guides, dig deeper into our supreme wisdom. We definitely have to dig deeper into our problem book. And as we go deeper into what we've already found, not only will it allow us to understand the Dianetics on a deeper level, but it'll allow us to take that information to another level. So tonight, we're gonna jump into the problem book. And I'm gonna lay a base first. Let's see. I'm gonna lay a base first, and then we're gonna go over our learning objectives. I might do one math problem tonight, time permitting, but we'll see where it takes us. So our Savior gives us this information. It says on page 26 of our Supreme Wisdom, this book teaches the lost foundation of Islam a thorough knowledge of our miserable state of condition in a mathematical way when we were found by our Savior, W.D. Farad. Now, there's a key in here. Well, there's a couple of keys in here, but one thing I want us to look at is go back and remember the miserable state of condition that we were in when we first came in contact with the teachings. Think about the things we were wrestling with. Think about the things we were striving to overcome. On one level, we were in a miserable state of condition at that time period. Now, with regards to the problem book and what we're going to deal with, we're going to make some connections between our wisdom and the tech of Dianetics. But I wanted to start with this. There's one key word, miserable. And in digging and asking questions, remember in the word question, you have the word quest. So in asking questions, it starts us on a journey through different levels of wisdom. This word miserable defined as being in a state of distress or unhappiness as from want or shame. Now, it just so happens, I also found this word in Dianetics. L. Ron Hubbard said that there are only a few dozen of words necessary to get almost any engram. These would be the key single word repeaters. They are such words as these: forget. I only listed a few of them, but there's at least 24 words that were listed. But these first few kind of started my mind thinking. Some of these words are forget, remember, memory, blind, deaf, and dumb. And then finally I came to the word miserable. Now, what do you see, if anything, in that phrase from Dianetics? Would anyone like to take a stab at it?
If it's permissible, as I tried to answer you asked who had not participated in Dianetics.
Mhm.
As I said, I have the reading material, but I've never sat for an auditing. So
Okay.
would it be permissible that you could actually define Ngram? I've heard it thrown around and used and
Mhm.
have a general concept of what it is, but
Sure.
with concrete knowledge that'll help me.
An engram basically is a cellular, when you deal with Dianetics, it's like a cellular recording. It's like, let's see, how can I put it? An engram is a point in time when you go through either a physically painful situation or an emotionally painful situation. And that painful situation is recorded on a cellular level. Now, if towards the end, I'll go into it on it from a different perspective. But basically, when you look at thought, you look at emotion, and you look at effort. The endocrine system, in some of his writings, he states that the endocrine system is like a relay station between the thought and the physical body. And if my memory serves me correctly, every emotional state has a I think it's a neuropeptide or a chemical that's connected to each emotion. So when we go through these emotional states are actually recorded in our body on the level of chemistry. One of the chemicals that does something to our body is called ACTH. And when you go into ACTH and how it's removed, I've read some research that shows that ACTH is removed through tears, and that tears of grief are different than tears of happiness. And this is one of the reasons why after we have a good cry, we actually feel lighter and we feel better, because we're able to relieve ourselves of the buildup of ACTH, which when you look at it from the perspective of Dianetics, that's actually it's called charge. And that's how the engrams are recorded. It's recorded from a chemical level. So would that be a good, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Think neuropeptides and chemistry, and then we can go deeper as time goes on, but the painful situations are recorded on a cellular and a genetic level.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But when you look at this statement, the fact that it had blind, deaf, and dumb mentioned here, and these three words are connected to the concept of engrams. Immediately, and again, I take no credit for the study, because Allah says in the Holy Quran that he teaches man by the pen what man knew not. So I only go where I'm guided to go. So I'm thankful to Allah for the information that comes up here. But my mind went immediately to English lesson C1 on these words right here, blind, deaf, and dumb. And our lesson just says, I hardly believe that unless they are blind, deaf, and dumb. And then it says, well, they were made blind, deaf, and dumb by the devil when they were babies. So when you look at the English C lesson number 1, it talks about something that took place in our childhood from eating the wrong food. And as a result, it causes, why does he fear now that he's a grown man? So there's something that happened in our childhood. There was some food we ate that was incorrect. And as a result, it still affects us today. Well, we know it's not a physical food, but we understand that Master Farad Muhammad, when you look on page, I think it's page 19 of Closing the Gap, we're told that he would teach the believers through the use of pictures. And then the more you look into the picture, the more that you study the picture, the more truth you can extract from that picture. So when you look at English lesson C1 and you look at the basics of Dianetics and how our past affects our present, then you can see a correlation between both of the sciences. So we're going to look at specifically problem number 31. And I also kind of look at this as demo kit number 31. A demo kit, for those that have not heard that term yet, a demo kit is simply objects that you use as masks to illustrate a concept that you're studying. For anyone that has studied the Dianetics or any of the lessons in the Church of Scientology, you'll be familiar with that little bowl that they had on the tables that had the glass beads and the marbles and the buttons. And anytime you didn't understand a concept, you were to take the concept and try to use those pieces of material to give you mass to understand the concept. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to use the symbols or the objects that we find in problem number 31, and we're going to go and probe a little deeper into the elements of problem number 31 to see if we can find some correspondence with the technology of Dianetics. So a demo kit simply represents the use of math to illustrate and understand a concept. So we're gonna look at problem number 31 and break it down, and then go in reverse to understand the Dianetics. And at the same time, we're gonna use the Dianetics to understand problem number 31. Now, if we go back to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the video that we presented last week, one of the things he said was that our supreme wisdom is like a treasure chest that we have been unable to open. And with the help and the use of the Dianetics, hopefully we should be able to extract some of the treasures that are contained in our supreme wisdom and in our problem book now. So we're going to marry the concepts of Dianetics to the allegorical information that's found in problem number 31. So we know in problem number 31, it says a lion in a cage walks back and forth 60 feet per minute, seeking a way out of the cage. It took nearly 4 centuries to find the door. Now with modern equipment, he is walking 3,000 feet per minute, and he has 3,000 miles by 2,000 miles to go yet. How long will it take him to cover this territory of said 3,000 by 2,000 miles at the above walking rate? 5,280 feet equals 1 mile. He also has 17 million keys, which he turns at the rate of 16 and 17/100ths per minute. How long will it take him to turn the whole 17 million keys? So that's the basic problem that we're looking at. Then it gives us a couple more elements. 60 minutes equal 1 hour, 24 hours equal 1 day, 365 days equal 1 year. But it says the above figures do not include rusty locks. Now, here's the learning objectives for part 1. What could the lion possibly represent? What could the cage represent? What is the significance of going back and forth? How does that correspond or correlate to Dianetics technology? What could the door represent? What is meant by modern equipment? What could be meant by turning the keys? And finally, what could be the rusty locks? So basically what we're going to do, God willing, we're going to try to crack open each of these concepts and then see if we can find any correspondence to Dianetics and the tech. And this will allow us to go a little deeper into our supreme wisdom. And then as time goes on, we're going to strive to go deeper into the problem book and the lessons and see if we can find correspondence with everything that's in our lessons to see if it has an ARC, affinity, reality, communication with the tech. And then if we have supreme wisdom, and we do, then we have that, which should take us deeper into the tech and put us back, as Mother Tanet once, Muhammad once said, at the top of the pyramid, because the missing capstone, she said, represented a people. So we want to get back our rightful place. In order to do that, we got to deal with our reactive mind, and we got to begin to crack open the wisdom that we have been blessed to receive. So the learning objectives for part 2, we won't be able to do it this Wednesday at this point. I'm going to try to find a way to do it, but what I wanted to do, and what I probably do at another time, is we'll work this problem number 31 from a mathematical perspective. You know, how fast is 60 feet per minute? How fast is 3,000 feet per minute? How could we convert that to miles per hour? What is meant by 3,000 by 2,000? I think some of us may already know that one. And then how long will it take to cover this area at the above walking rates? How long would it take to turn the 17 million keys if we turn them at the rate of 16 and 17th 100ths per minute? We'll do the calculation to show how long that will take. We'll begin with the lion in the cage. So here's, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of problem number 31. Before we start, does anyone have any questions up to this point? Okay, so we'll continue. Now, there's two lions mentioned in the Supreme Wisdom. We know one is found in problem number 31. Where is the other lion found in the Supreme Wisdom? Who would like to take a crack at that one?
Could he be lost?
Well, he is lost because we don't know where he is. But what I'm saying is there's another lion in there. Has anyone ever seen the two lions in the Supreme Wisdom? We know about the lion walking back and forth in the cage. But where's the other lion mentioned in the Supreme Wisdom?
I still say he's the lost foundation. That was just a guess. I don't know.
Well, the lost foundation, we can say, is the one that's walking back and forth in the cage.
Okay.
But I'll give you the other lion. Why did we take Jerusalem from the devil? How long ago? Who here knows this this lesson?
Do.
It says Jerusalem is a name given by the Jews, which means founded in peace. And it was first built by the original man who was called Jabus, also Salem and Ariel. The word Ariel in Hebrew means lion of God. So there's a second lion in the Supreme Wisdom. So we have these two lions. From this quote from Closing the Gap, it says, it was like the arousal of a powerful lion when Minister Farrakhan arose and took his stand in the most western part of America in September of 1977 to do as the Holy Quran reads, arise and warn. That's from page 273. So now we have what we call an anchor point of what a lion looks like and what a lion would be doing. So the Ariel, or the Lion of God in the Supreme Wisdom, he was part of the building of Jerusalem. So we have one lion that's building, and we have another lion. We have another lion that's walking back and forth in a cage. Does that make sense so far? All right. All this is going to come together in a few moments. So one line represents cause, the other is effect. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we could say, represents the lion that already made it out the cage. He's traveling 3,000 by 2,000. Really, he's traveling more than that. He's traveling 196,940,000 square miles of the planet Earth. But there's another lion that's stuck in this cage, and that's what we want to talk about tonight. It says that lion in the cage walks back and forth 60 feet per minute, seeking a way out of the cage. Now here, the word lion, it represents a person of outstanding interest or importance. It's a symbol of courage. Courage means mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, and difficulty. Having the ability to put one's opinion into practice. Now, having the ability to put something into practice would be similar to being cause, is that right? So when we look at this symbol of a lion, when we look at having the ability to put one's opinions into practice, how is that phrased or how is that explained using the Dianetic technology?
I thought of postulating. That's what I thought of, brother.
Okay, that's exactly right. So we're going to hold on to postulating. Where can we find that in our supreme wisdom? In other words, the word postulating in Dianetics is similar to another phrase that's found in the supreme wisdom.
Would that be prayer?
We could say prayer. That wasn't what I was hinting to, but prayer is definitely when you clear the terms. Postulating and prayer, when you actually get to the nuts and bolts of it, yes, prayer is postulating.
Would that be faith?
Faith is another one. I want us to pinpoint specifically to the lessons, specifically Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2.
Oh, I was going to come from number 1 and say making our word
bring
bond.
it.
Number
Bring it from
11.
number 1. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Oh, yes, sir. Have you not learned that your word shall be bond regardless of whom or what? Because when we postulate it, we're making a claim. And I just see that as making our word bond.
Okay, no, that works. That works too. That works well. Because a couple of weeks ago, we broke down the significance of making your word bond and rule number 3, where we spoke about speaking past, present, and future tense being perfect. So that's correct as well. So we have having the ability to put one's opinions into practice. We have a postulate, but when we look at it from this perspective of specifically of what I was thinking about, but the other answers are correct, writing one's history in advance. So when we say who wrote the Holy Quran or Bible, how long ago, will you tell us why does Islam renew history every 25,000 years? What the original man is really doing is he's postulating his history 25,000 years in advance. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that the original man writes history and then he walks into what he has written. He says the colored man makes history and writes about what he has done. The original man writes what he will do into the thousands of the years, and then he makes all the circumstances and events take place that bring his postulate into existence. So the original man postulates 25,000 years in advance, and he does it to equal his home circumference a year to every mile, which shows us that we have the ability to postulate. But right now we're stuck in this cage, and we're gonna go even further into what this cage represents on an individual level. This lion represents you and I. It's our ability to postulate, our ability to write our own history in advance. See, when we postulate, we are being cause. We are saying kum fayakun, be and it is. Allah says in the Holy Quran, he is the determiner of what he does. He brings his word into existence. And when you deal with cause and postulate and writing history, that's these terms are synonymous with self-determinism. Does that make sense? So we can see Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he's right. He started writing his own history. He has brought things into existence by Allah's permission. He right now is the best example in our presence of self-determinism. So he represents the lion that's out of the cage right now. So now what exactly is the cage on this level of Dianetics?
The
So the
reactive mind? I'm sorry,
No, that's
brother.
okay. You're right there, sister. That's fine. It's a structure used to confine birds or other animals, a prison cell or a camp. From the perspective of the Holy Quran, it says, it may be that your Lord will have mercy on you. And if you return to mischief, we will return to punishment. And we have made hell a prison for the disbelievers. Then it says, Surah 83, ayat 7 through 9, nay, surely the record of the wicked is in the prison. And what will make thee know what the prison is? It is a written book. The word for prison is hasr, and it means to enclose, to restrain, or to contain. The word hasra also means dyslogia, which means the inability to express oneself effectively. So now I want to pose a question. Who in the chat or who in the Zoom meeting has the ability to express themselves effectively? Meaning we have a thorough knowledge of ourselves at this point in time.
Mhm.
I won't raise my hand because I know that's not me.
Mhm.
So all of us on some levels could say we are dealing with dyslogia. We don't express ourselves effectively because if we are in the image and likeness of Allah, God, then there's things that we should be doing. And the reason why we don't manifest the great ideas that come to our mind and manifest the great thoughts that, we think great thoughts every day. But every time it seems like we think a great thought, either doubt comes from within ourselves to put our fire out from within, or we allow individuals that are in our circumference or in our environment, and they just drop a word on us, and we allow their word to extinguish the fire of our desire. Does that shoe fit anyone?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Indeed.
Before moving forward,
Say again?
I said before moving forward, I would
Yes,
just
sir.
like to add, coming from outside of the Dianetics language, but seeing how it connects, that the dyslogia, inability to express oneself in healthcare and medicine, and as a student, we are trained and taught when we get ready to go in and take an exam to try to not become emotional, which I think you all look at as the reactive mind, because it clouds the ability to be able to analyze and process the question clearly, which is the same as I'm taking it in terms of being able to communicate effectively. That once we become emotional around the question, it's a question that maybe is reworded in a way that we didn't necessarily anticipate in our preparation, and it arouses the emotions. And even though we know the answer, we're blocked mentally from being able to retrieve the answer because of the emotional impact that's taking place at that moment.
Yes, sir, definitely. One thing that we learned years ago, when I was a student in the martial arts, whenever we would get ready to spar, one of the main things that we had to focus on was to remain unemotional, because when you're emotional, you can't sense your opponent's movement. You're not looking at his eye movement. You're not looking at slight movements in his hands and his feet, his stance. Is he on a right stance or left stance? And when you're at peace and your mind is serene, you're able to take in more data. And the more data you can take in about your opponent, the better your decision making in to allow you to defeat your opponent. So the same concept is in the martial arts. It's in test taking. One of the hardest things to do is when we pull up to a burning building, you have to move the emotion out, because if you don't remove the emotion, you can't think clear. So emotion and logic can't occupy the same space at the same time. So I mean, you're exactly right, brother.
Praise be to Allah.
If the prison in Arabic means to be enclosed, restrained, or contained, how does this correspond to Dianetic technology? There's two key concepts in Dianetics that fits the mold of being imprisoned. You have what's called enforced ARC, and you have inhibited ARC. Does that make sense? So enforced ARC is an individual who has been subjected to enforced affinity, reality, and communication. Let me move my screen here. Has an interrupted self-determinism. So think back on the childhood when we had things that were forced on us. And as things are forced on us, that took away our self-determinism as a child. Think back on and the example that comes to mind is when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told us about when he was in school. I think he said he wanted to be a doctor, and his teacher said, "Oh, Louis, you know, we're not, my people won't come to you, but you play the violin so well." So it's like we had to grow up in an environment in this country dealing with enforced ARC. Jesus is white, Santa Claus is white, the prophets are white. We had to, black is a curse. All these things we have received growing up in this society is enforced ARC. And that's one of the reasons why we are aberrated. Just by being in this environment, we're aberrated. Does that make sense? Then he says, anytime a person is made to agree by force or threat or deprivation to another's reality, and yet does not feel that reality himself, an aberrative condition exists. Well, we don't have far to go to even understand the concept of enforced ARC. We can just look at the news every day right now. We can look at what's taking place in the Black community. We can look at what's taking place with the killing of our Black men and our Black women. We have this white racist mentality being enforced on us. And now when you look at society is getting even more aberrated because as a result of this. Now, when you look at inhibited ARC, the inhibition of affinity, communication, and reality is no less serious than their enforcement. Then he says, one might say that this is the most serious influence in reducing the individual on the tone scale. The inhibition of the individual's reality. This is invalidation, and invalidation is the most serious break of the auditor's code. So in this society, we've had to deal with enforced, and we've had to deal with inhibited. We've had people stuffing down our throats their ideas and their concepts of how things should be. and we've been inhibited, meaning our history, our contributions, all the things that we have given as the mothers and fathers of civilization is only mentioned 1 month during the year.
Mhm.
So we've been enforced on one level and we've been inhibited on one level. So we've been hit with the right and the left hook, we could say. So that's part of our prison.
Mhm. And may I ask something, brother? You
Yes, ma'am.
reminded me
Sure.
when I was in the military, we were younger, they came out with the cornrows and wearing their hair natural. And I can remember so vividly being a woman, I think in my late 20s or early 30s, how the military opposed that. And in hindsight, that was our reality, wearing our hair natural, cornrows, even though we were just discovering it. And the white man couldn't understand it, so there was trying to find a regulation to prevent us from following through with that.
Exactly. And there's been many in the media over the course of the past 5 to 10 years, you've had situations where, I remember that young brother who was a wrestler who had dreadlocks, and in order to wrestle, they came and cut his dreadlocks right there, right before the match. So he had to choose between wrestling, and he was, I think he was ranked pretty high. So it's like, okay, if you want to wrestle, then you have to do as we say, and that's been the nature of what we've had to tolerate in this country all these years. We've had an aberrated individual enforcing his aberrated ideas on us.
And if I may, to
Go ahead,
build on
brother.
that point,
Mhm.
it's just happened again where a young sister had locks in her hair, but it was longer than her baseball or softball cap. And they made her cut off her locks to be able to play softball. But then just this weekend, I saw a softball game where the Caucasian female had long blonde ponytail hanging from her baseball cap, but there was no enforcement to cut off her hair. So it seems that it's enforced selectively.
Of course. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's why we need a state or territory of our own. So this cage that's mentioned in problem number 31, as you mentioned earlier, Sister Cheryl, you must have caught wind of this. The cage or the prison is the aberrated or the reactive mind. So we're looking at this problem number 31 from the perspective of ourself. We are using this as a demo kit to understand ourself. So we are the lion, and the cage is our aberration. The cage represents, the lion in the cage could be the demo kit to represent our self-determinism that is imprisoned by our reactive mind. So when you look at the lion in the cage, and the lion represents self-determinism and the ability to postulate and the ability to write history in advance. That lion represents the original man's ability to say be and it is. But that lion that's in the cage that can't manifest the lion that's in him, when you look at the language of Dianetics, this is called interbulated theta or in theta. So the lion in the cage from the supreme wisdom corresponds to the interbulated theta or what's called theta that's found in the science of survival. Does that make sense? So we're still going to marry these terms so that we can take our supreme wisdom and we can take our Holy Quran and we can use this wisdom to break down everything. So now let's look at this concept of back and forth. This lion is walking back and forth. This is the law of returning. When we understand the concept of going back and forth, we know that to go back and forth on the time track, everyone in this room, if you think about an instant where you have become upset or angry about something, we could all say that we were in the present, but something that someone did or something that someone said made us think about something that happened to us yesterday, meaning in the past. Does that make sense? So we're constantly going back and forth in this time track. We're constantly going back and forth. So if we're going back and forth, we're like the lion going back and forth in the cage, in the cage of our own mind. L. Ron Hubbard says that the physically painful engrams cover up later emotional charges. Emotional charges cover up physically painful engrams, and he says back and forth, back and forth. So just as the lion is going back and forth in the cage, every lion that's in this Zoom meeting right now and lioness goes back and forth every day in our own reactive mind, in our own aberrations, because unless there's anyone in the room that's clear, everyone in the room is still working through some stuff from our past. Does that make sense? We still suffer from some food we ate when we were a baby. Then he says the engrams slide back and forth according to when they are keyed in or restimulated. An engram may underlie today's action, which belonged 40 years ago on the time track and should be back there. So there's things that take place right now, and we're reacting to things right now. And this is based on something that happened 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's still affecting us today. Does that make sense? It is not remarks about time difference so much that aberrate. It is the untimed character of engrams. He says that time is the great charlatan. It heals nothing. So he say time heals all wounds. No, it does not. Because if time healed all wounds, we'd all be clear. It only changes the environmental aspects and man's associates. The engram of 10 years ago, with all its painful emotion, may be insisted and forgotten, but it's right there, ready to force action if re-stimulated today. Now, there's two key points I want to touch on right here. One is the concept of insisted, or the concept of assist. When you look at assist from a medical perspective, and Brother William, if you can back up with some information to bring some more reality to this, brother, by all means do so. But assist is like, based on what we eat, there's certain chemicals in the food, and there's certain chemicals that can't be broken down or digested properly. So what the body has a tendency to do, the body will try to take the toxins out of circulation and compartmentalize them away from the vital organs. So sometimes, and specifically a friend of mine years and years ago, she contacted me and she mentioned how she had these cysts and she was nervous because she had to go to the doctor and she thought they were cancerous. And the first thing I did was I questioned her about her eating habits. She ate a lot of fast food. I said, you got to understand the chemicals in the fast food. Some of these chemicals the body can't break down. So what the body is doing, it's taking those toxins out of circulation in order to preserve itself. The body is very intelligent, and it will compartmentalize the stuff it can't get rid of into cysts. I said, now, if you stop eating the fast food and change your diet, your body will be able to break down these toxins and rid the body of the toxins. But if you're constantly eating, your body focuses so much on digestion that it can't focus on cleansing. So she changed her diet, and as a result, she didn't have to have the surgery, and the body was able to eliminate these toxins from the body. The same thing happens on the mental level. We have these events that took place 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And these things are still with us today. And it's encysted, meaning that's an engram is like a cyst. It's an emotional and a mental cyst. And that's why when you pop it through Dianetic auditing, all the emotion comes out. Does that make sense?
Brother Lukeman, you're exactly accurate and correct. And one of the more urgent terms that a cyst can evolve into what we know of as an abscess, and that's an infected cyst. And you're exactly right that it walls off the area of infection that can't be broken down or eliminated. And what I would say in terms of digestion, things are encoded. And so substances that we take in, I use this analogy of definition of what a paradigm is or a paradox is, in the sense that our digestive system is really outside of our body, in the sense that the things that we eat, when you put something in your mouth, it goes down the esophagus, ends in the stomach and the intestines. All of that is, in a sense, outside of the body, because it's the breakdown of the food into the chemical components that gets absorbed. And once it crosses that barrier to be absorbed, then it enters the body when it's able to go into the bloodstream and circulate to the liver and then on to the rest of the body. So things that we take in that don't have the proper coding, then it can't be broken down and it can't be eliminated from the body. And that's when the immune system kicks in to encapsulate it so that it can be walled off to keep from doing further harm to other areas of the body.
Now, as you're talking, Brother William, here's the thought that comes to mind. When we say things can't be broken down, that's like a held down 7. You know, the fact that we were taught our whole life about certain things that you just can't figure out, it just makes no sense at all. But then when you try to explain to someone how these things are incorrect, they say, well, I don't want to hear that. I don't, the Holy Quran, Allah says that these individuals say, well, that's what, that's what my father taught me. And that's what that's what I learned. And that's how I'm going to live because that's how I was raised. We've encapsulated our own insanity in the same way. We want to hold on to that held down 7. So we want to hold on to the cyst, a mental cyst. So the summary for the first part here, this lion, the lion, a cage, and walking back and forth could be an allegorical representation of an individual who has the potential to use self-determinism to build a new reality. However, this lion is trapped in their own reactive mind, going back and forth from present confusions to past painful incidents. So when we look at problem 31 right now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that when we learn something, we don't say we're a student of mathematics, we say we are mathematics. So now we don't say a lion walks back and forth in a cage. Now we can say, okay, I'm the one that's walking back and forth in the cage. Then it says,
Brother,
go ahead, Sister Cheryl.
I got a question for you real quick. It's very important for us to have these classes that you're doing. I'm going back to 144 and talking about the system, these facsimiles, as we are educating ourselves to help others. Also, should we watch the energy that we're around too? If the energy don't help promote the growth, the spiritual growth that we need to go out and do further work. What is your thoughts there?
Let me see if I can find you an actual fact on that one. There's a verse in the Holy Quran.
Am I in tune about what you're asking here?
Mhm. There's a
Okay.
verse in the Holy Quran. I can't place it off the top of my head, but and I'm paraphrasing it. It says that when you're amongst people who are having some other type of discourse that is not in harmony with your spirit, you remove yourself from that environment until they cease talking about that. So we have to be careful about certain energy. You know, when we're in the streets, you know, and when we're soldiering, sometimes we have to put ourselves in certain environments to go back and reach for our people. But we can't stay in those environments. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because we actually have to put ourselves in certain environments in order to go after our people. But
That's right.
we can't, you know, we can't go hang out, you know, we have family members that we want to reach, but we have to be mindful. We can't hang out too long. You know, some of us like to play spades and hang out with family, but we have to be very, very mindful and very careful, because some of us, not all of us, some of us, if we stay in a certain environment for too long, we have the potential to fall back into that environment.
But look, man,
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir, brother.
what came to mind with a question from Sister Cheryl is the lecture that Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan did, the series of lecture he did on how to give birth to a God. And then he gave the example of a pregnant woman and how she should keep herself out of certain environment during that pregnancy. And it's like us we're pregnant with the word to deliver our people. Absolutely. That's what came to mind, Sister Cheryl, for me.
Thank you, brother. Thank you both.
Yes, ma'am.
Praise be to Allah.
All right. So now let's deal with the door. Let's see. Wait a minute. I'm trying to juggle more than one thing here. Okay. A door. It's a means of access or participation. Also means opportunity. A door is a way of obtaining something. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has already stated that he is the door. Is that correct? Now, I want to share an ayat from the Holy Quran. This is my opinion, but this is in reference to Minister Farrakhan giving us the instructions to study the Dianetics. Again, this is the way that when I came across this ayat in the Holy Quran, this is how I perceived it. There's a verse in the Holy Quran where it talks about the changing of the Qibla. And the verse starts out, it's Surah 2. I know I have it in here somewhere, but it starts out by saying, and the fools among the people will say, what has turned them from the Qibla which they had? Now, when you read the history of what this is talking about, during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the believers at that time would pray towards Jerusalem. Then at a certain point in time, he changed the Qibla from Jerusalem to Mecca. Now the word Qibla, it just simply means a direction towards which someone focuses. So they were praying towards Jerusalem. Then Prophet Muhammad was inspired by Allah's grace to change the Qibla to Mecca. Now there's some symbolism in here, I believe, for us today, because Jerusalem, when we understand it, means founded in peace. But when we look at Mecca at that time period, Mecca represented an area, if I'm correct, it had 361 idols. So it's almost as if he was changing the focus from Jerusalem and changing it towards the area which he was destined to conquer that was full of idols. Does that make sense? So it says the fools among the people during Prophet Muhammad said, what has turned them from the Qibla? Now the word fools in Arabic is sufahu, which means insolent or rudely disrespectful. Now, you have some individuals that were very disrespectful when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made the decision for us to study the Dianetics. And they said that he was changing the teachings. Well, understand this. When Prophet Muhammad changed the direction or the Qibla from Jerusalem to Mecca, he didn't change their religion. They did not cease to be Muslims. They just had a change in their focus temporarily, and now they were focused on an area which they were to conquer. So me personally, my opinion, to me, it represents the changing of the Qibla didn't mean taking us away from the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but the minister wanted us to focus on this Mecca right here to make our Hajj, where we have all these idols in our own mind that we need to conquer now.
Good teaching.
So the Qibla is just the focus of attention. That's all the minister did. He didn't change the teaching. He didn't take anything away from what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us. We have to understand that when you deal with a higher level of mathematics, and specifically when you deal with calculus, calculus is the mathematics that deals with change. You can have an equation that doesn't change, and by putting in a particular input, you can get a different output or a different number or result based on past, present, and future. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is going into the teaching of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he's giving us the solutions that work with respect to the time in which we are in. So what worked yesterday, it might not work today, because today we need different solutions, but the teachings don't change. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So the minister was 1000% correct.
Yes, sir. Yes, he was. Yes, sir.
Because if we understand that Allah says in the Holy Quran, the East and the West belong only to Allah, then if there's truth in Dianetics, and if Allah is Al-Haq, if he is the truth, then whatever truth is in the Dianetics, that is Allah. Does that make sense? So you can't, so anytime we deal with truth, we're already dealing with Islam. And if we're dealing with Islam, then we're already dealing with the minister.
Right. And may I add something, brother?
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, I'm just going to say this real quick. When he talked about, when I learned about, when I went into Scientology and learned about postulating, told you I was much younger. I would always say they didn't stole our information, because postulating, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say, and Mr. Farrakhan, he say be and let it be. Well, a lot of Muslims couldn't say be and let it be. Why? So we had to go into Dianetics and get rid of that suppression that was put on us. That's what I just thought about when you said that.
Mm-hmm.
So we can say be or postulate,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Look at it from this perspective. Everyone that's on this Zoom meeting obviously is either on a cell phone or a computer. That would imply that you have a modem and a router. So the modem connects to the internet, and the internet represents information that is almost infinite. And that modem speaks to the internet using a certain language. Then that modem connects to the router, and it translates the internet information into a language that the router will understand, and that's what feeds the information to the computer. Now, when you have a slowed connection, sometimes it's not the internet that's wrong, it's because you have viruses in your computer. And these viruses in the computer can slow down the processing speed. It can remove certain folders. It can import malware and viruses. So if the internet on the spiritual level represents Allah, the infinite, then our connection is only slowed down because of the viruses that are in our modem. So the Dianetics doesn't change the Islam. The Dianetics removes the malware so we can improve our connection to what we say we already believe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now here's the key. Here it says, and thus we made you an exalted nation, that you may be the bearer of witness to the people, and that the messenger may be a bearer of witness to you. And we did not make that which thou wouldst have to be the Qibla, but that we might distinguish him who follows the messenger from him who turns back upon his heels. Now, the same individuals that have been saying, yeah, the minister, he's the messenger, you know, he's the messenger, you know, the minister, and the Most High Elijah Muhammad, and the minister is this, and the minister is this, and he's the Messiah. Yeah, many people said all those things. But when he said, it was like many of us, even in the nation, saying, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. But there were some, when the minister had us take up the Dianetics, these were the same individuals that said, crucify him. So perhaps on another level, the changing of the Qibla, that the minister pointing us to Dianetics, maybe that was a trial and a test just to see who was really with the minister. There's two other times in the history of the Nation of Islam where there was a change of the Qibla. Let's look at the first one. If you look under the time when Master Fard Muhammad was still here, and he asked everyone in the class, can I choose the one that I want to represent? And they said, yes, sir, Prophet Fard. And he pointed to the Most High Elijah Muhammad. Is that right? Didn't he change the Qibla? He was saying, look at my representative, right? And then what happened after Master Fard Muhammad left? They turned on the Most High Elijah Muhammad, and he had to run for 7 years. Is that correct? Now let's look at what the Most High Elijah Muhammad said. Everywhere you see Farrakhan, look at him. Where he says go, go. Where he says stay from, stay from. What did he do? Changing the Qibla. Can we see how this is all connected?
Yes, sir.
So the changing of the Qibla, as Allah tells us in here, that this is done to distinguish who's really with the messenger and who's going to turn back upon their heels. Again, this is just my opinion, but this is just my perception. The minister gave us instructions, and based on that one little decision, it caused some individuals to turn, to run. And it says, and it was indeed a hard test, except for those whom Allah has guided. Nor was Allah going to make your faith to be fruitless. Surely Allah is compassionate, merciful to the people. Now, just when I wrote this, I was putting together the PowerPoint. I looked at that verse number. That's ayat number 144. Then I thought about Sister Cheryl mentioning the 144 a couple of weeks ago. So just maybe those that listen to the minister, maybe those are of the 144,000. I'm just saying, I don't know, but I like working with the numbers.
Brother Lukman,
Yes.
that reminds me of, in our restrictive law, to obey Allah is to obey the messenger. And we're taught to be able to move on a dime or change on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Qibla is changed by Allah and the messenger, the one who Allah is serving in our midst, then that's being able to change on a dime. So that's tests our belief for sure in Allah and his messenger.
Yes, ma'am. And our restrictive law also, were you finished, sister?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Our restrictive law also says obey those in authority over as long as it doesn't conflict with our religion. And the reason why some believe that the Dianetics conflicted with our religion is because they didn't understand the Dianetics, and I would humbly submit, nor did they understand our religion. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, sister.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam.
I wanted to read something that I found in my Dianetics book. And it says A Message for Black People by L. Ron Hubbard.
Go ahead, sister.
Did you read this already?
We have, but you can read it again.
Oh, praise be to Allah. It says, completely aside from what it means to the whites, Scientology offers the Black people of America a wonderful chance. The world's primary study of the mind has a long and excellent record of success across the world in improving the opportunities of man. If Scientology were to be used by Black people of America, the gains for which they have striven so hard in the social world would be guaranteed. Scientology can increase intelligence, improve personality, and bring personal power and alertness to any person to whom it is applied. It may seem at first a difficult subject, but it is not. It is far easier than common school subjects. Many people have already studied it to a professional level. The gates of Scientology are wide open to Black people. Professional Scientologists has more social standing and ability to help than any other professional field. If Black people, even on a part-time basis, studied it and used it upon other Black people, if Black centers were to be set up in America for Black people, the standard of ability, social activity, and intelligence would be increased far beyond any future possible loss. Look into Scientology and use it to help your own people. Let them truly walk in the sun and take their place amongst the most brilliant people of the earth. And this was written January 3rd, 1961. And I just wanted to say for the minister to introduce it to us, just several years ago, and it was, this alone was written in 1961, and L. Ron Hubbard is speaking then, the benefits that it will have for us then, with all of the modern technology now that we have, how would it be more effective in this dispensation of time? So, being able for you, brother, to tie Dianetics in with supreme wisdom, I think is just so profound in seeing the parallels.
Praise
So thank you.
Allah.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So now we have been given a door. So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave us Dianetics as a tool, he was providing a door out of the mental, physical, and spiritual cage that we have been walking back and forth in. Now, what's this thing with the modern equipment? Modern means relating to or characteristic of the present or immediate past. Our lessons teach us that we're supposed to be fast moving with quickness, fast moving cleanliness, internally and externally, right down to the modern times. So how are we supposed to be quick, fast, and clean internally? We have to go at it from a mental perspective. The word equipment, the implements used in an operation or activity, and equipment also means mental or emotional traits or resources. So when you look at this book, it's called The Modern Science of Mental Health. I've never found any book that could even come close dealing with the mind in a modern context as Dianetics. Now let's look at these locks, or the keys in the locks. Now, what is meant by turning the keys? Allah says in the Holy Quran, indeed, we see the turning of thy face to heaven. So I want to, again, I don't know what it was about this 144, but this 144 kept popping up all over the place. I wanted us to understand the concept or clear the word turning. The word turning is kalaba. It means to turn, but it also means to examine, to investigate, or to change. So in turning the keys, we want to examine, investigate, or change the keys. L. Ron Hubbard tells us that the engram itself has been covered. It follows a cycle of action. The body is predisposed to the conduct and conditions contained in the engram when the engram is first received. Then a conscious level experience keys in the engram, and other experience of the content of the engram itself may make it chronic. This is predisposition, precipitation, and perpetuation in the mental plane. Now, is there anyone here that does not understand the concept or the relationship between the engram, the key, and the lock? Is there anyone that does not understand that? Picture. Go ahead.
Can you explain it, brother, so I can make sure I do understand it?
Okay, let's do a mock-up. We'll do a mock-up. Picture in your mind, you have your car is parked outside right now. Your car is just sitting there and it's not doing anything. So let's say your car is an engram. It's dormant, it's just sitting there.
Did the police come yesterday for the car window?
Say again?
I didn't see it.
Okay, so your car is an engram. So now, if you go get in your car, you put the key in the car and you turn on the ignition. What have you just done? You have just started a cycle of action, a start, change, stop, so to say. You turn on the car. Now your car is on, but it's not moving, but it's on. So now, once you turn that key and turn the car on, now you have the ability to put that car in gear and go run somebody over. So now your car is the engram. When you turn that key, you keyed in the engram. And when you shifted it, it went from potential energy, which is energy based on position, into kinetic energy, meaning energy of motion. So now you just put the engram into motion. And when people, let's say, DUIs and whatnot, where you accidentally, you hit someone with your car, that's the same concept of an engram. The engram itself is dormant. The key in is considered the first lock. Once that car is in motion, that's the lock. Does that make sense? So we have all these engrams, some of which have not been keyed in. As long as we stay above 2.5, then a lot of our engrams won't turn on. That's why in the scripture it says, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. When we sit still and we sit still too long and our mind starts to wander about yesterday and the things that happened and the pain of yesterday, if we sit too long, now it's like we are slowly turning these engrams on. And that's when the whispering of the slinking devil starts to whisper in our ear. Does that make sense now? Was it Sister Sharon? Was it you that asked that? Who was it that asked that?
I thought it was Sister Tina.
Sister Tina?
Yes, sir. I was trying to turn my mic on. Yes, sir. I got it much better now.
That makes
Thank
sense?
you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So one of the ways to overcome the reactive mind is to stay busy involving ourselves in righteous activities. And that's why for us, with Brother Batin and Sister Belinda's group during Ramadan, we were doing this every day during Ramadan. Every day we take one section of the Holy Quran and we would connect it to the Dianetics and extract principles of Dianetics from every section. So we had Savior's Day 30 days straight during Ramadan. So our tone level was high. For those of us that were involved in that, our tone was high every day, being around believers every day. So in the midst of all the aberration that's taking place right now, you have believers every day that have an opportunity to spend time with other believers. This is how we keep our spirit going. We have to keep our tone levels high. Then he says, then a conscious level experience keys in the engram, and other experience of the content of the engram itself may make it chronic. This is predisposition, precipitation, and perpetuation. So we're in a chronic state. We're keyed in every day. And this is another reason why we have to, for those of us that are believers, Allah says in the Holy Quran, the friend of the believer is Allah, the messenger, and the true believer. We have to constantly, especially now during COVID, find time to spend time with the believers to keep our tone level up. So turning the keys could represent the removal of that which causes the re-stimulation. So during the processing, whether it's just Dianetic processing or straight wire, what we're doing is there's a term keyed in and keyed out. If the engram is already keyed in, then in our working together as believers, we are keying out the engram. We are turning off the re-stimulation. Now let's talk about the rusty locks. Allah says in the Holy Quran, Surah 83, verse 14, when our messages are recited to him, he says stories of those of yore. Nay, rather what they earned is rust upon their hearts. Nay, surely they are that day debarred from their Lord, then they will surely enter the burning fire. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fire. We went into the Holy Quran and we found the 7 levels of fire, or the 7 gates of hell. And we showed how these 7 gates can be found on the chart, the Hubbard chart of evaluation. So we learned here, an engram is an entire dramatic sequence implanted during unconsciousness, which possesses specific perceptic keys, any one of which, when unanalytically perceived by the individual in his environment, may in greater or lesser degrees set the engram into reaction. So there's things in our environment. And if we're not aware of the things in our environment, just out of the blue, something just doesn't feel right. Our tone level drops and we just can't put our finger on why is it that I feel that way. It could be being around a certain person. It could be something that was just said. And it just totally just, we had our state of mind was great. And then all of a sudden we say, no, I still don't even feel right. I don't even want to be bothered right now. Something happened. Then he says the locks are contained in the analytical mind as notations of confusions observed in the behavior of the organism or the entities which the analytical mind has in its area of observation. These locks are mental anguish. Now I'm gonna pose a question, and I want to see if anyone has ever experienced this. Are there any individuals in the Zoom meeting right now that has some reservations about mathematics? I got one hand. Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Of any individual in the room that has reservations about mathematics, can you think about a time during school when you were asked to do a mathematical problem and got it wrong and people made fun of you? Can you think of any
Yes, sir.
subject? Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that mental anguish is a lock. Some of us, it might not be mathematics, it could be chemistry, it could be many different subjects, but there's something that took place in school with regards to education, possibly for some of us, that when we tried to do something, we had enforced ARC or inhibited ARC. And as a result, to this day, as adults, we still have reservations with regards to mathematics or science or chemistry or physics or whatnot. This comes from our childhood. These locks represent the mental anguish that came from what took place in school with regards to education. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So when you look at rust upon the heart, the Arabic is Rana Hayala Kulubahim. And what the Rana means, it means to seize or to be overcome. In Lane's lexicon, which is another dictionary of Arabic, when it talked about the rust, it says what they used to do hath become like rust upon the clearness of their hearts, so as to make the knowledge of good from evil obscure to them. So as I was reading this, and the rust and the hiding of the mixing up of the good and evil, what came to mind was the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he says that every time we act to still the voice of correction coming from within ourselves, we are in fact murdering the messenger of Allah God. And he says the result is spiritual blindness, leading to spiritual death, leading ultimately to an untimely physical death. So then my thought was that when we have the mindset of killing the messenger of God within ourselves by stilling that self-accusing spirit, is it possible that that's a description of the rust that's on the lock? So when we are killing the messenger in ourselves, could we also say that we have a rusty mind? So in summary and in closing, this problem teaches us about our miserable condition in a mathematical way. So now when we look back at problem 31, can we say that it taught us something about ourselves individually in a mathematical way? Because as we were going through it, my thought was every individual, their mind was going to different aspects of their own lives that possibly corresponded to the lion in the cage. Is that a possibility?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now if we say that the lion represents a self-determined individual, is in a cage, which is the aberrated mind, and walking back and forth means past and present, going back and forth on the time track. Sometimes we're stuck in the past and we need to come back to present time. And the door, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in Dianetics, has been found. And we have the modern equipment. That's Dianetics, the modern science of the mind. We should be able to increase the speed of our movement to turn the 17 million keys. So these 17 million keys could possibly represent the keys that are contained in the lost found nation of Islam. Those are the individuals we have to go to with our Dianetic processing to help turn those keys that are in them. And we also have to turn the keys in ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to give you just a little quick something on a mathematical level, and then we're going to wrap things up so we can for those of us who are interested, we can go to the Closing the Gap workshop at 8 o'clock. But when you look at our, and I'm not going to do the math, but I just wanted to share this with the believers. As I was doing this, the thought came to mind. We know that the square mileage of the producing land is what?
29 million square miles.
The producing land is 29 million square miles. So if the producing land is 29 million square miles, does that mean, or does that imply that the other land is non-producing? Just a thought, something to think about. So when you look at the amount of land that could be considered non-producing, then you subtract 29 million from the total square miles of the planet Earth, and you get 167,940,000. It just so happens that if we look at the producing land as 29 million square miles, and if you take the area that would be considered non-producing, guess what the percentage of land is non-producing? It is 85%. So when we look at the 10%, the 5%, and the 85%, could this be another way of thinking that the 85% is looked upon as being non-producing? Just something to think about. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And in closing, I'm in the process of studying for a test that I have to take as well in about a month. And I came across one question. I'm gonna throw this out there for whoever wants to answer it. But when you look at the atmosphere, what's the percentage of oxygen in the atmosphere? And this is for anyone who wants to take a shot at it.
21%.
I was waiting for you, Brother William. 21%. Now, when the oxygen falls below what percentage does death start making its move in on us? What percentage is dangerous to an individual?
0.
Well, yeah, that's very dangerous.
Absolutely. Well, in the medical field, we don't measure the oxygen in the atmosphere. We measure what's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
And so when the oxygen drops below 90, you start to be concerned. Below
Right.
85 is more urgent. And then anything less than that is considered critical.
Yeah, that's exactly right. For the test that I have to take, we have to understand the percentage, because sometimes we have to go into environments where the oxygen levels might be depleted. And the answer to the question is 16%. We know 20%, 21% oxygen is normal, and the dangerous level is 16%, which means when you remove what percent removal causes death?
5%.
Which teaches us if you remove the 5%, then the rest of the people are going to die. Is that right?
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That means the 5% are the ones that are keeping everyone breathing, which is why we got to keep doing what we're doing.
Brother Luke,
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
I should have gone ahead and said it, because I was going to say 16, but my logic was was because of the fact that it mentioned 16, the rate of which the keys are turned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say 16 because it mentioned 16 there.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if that's connected with the answer.
And the reason why I say that is when I take tests, I try to connect the answers to the test to things that I've seen in the Supreme Wisdom, so that it's easier to remember. You know, you gauge everything based on what you already know. So really you don't have to study as hard, but you can actually retain more information in less time. Perhaps at another time we'll have a workshop where we just deal with study techniques. But with that being said and done, dear family, does anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, or suggestions? Sister Tina.
Good class. All praises due to Allah as always. Good class.
Praise be to Allah.
I'm sorry, Sister Martina, I came across you.
All right.
Forgive me.
Go ahead, Sister Tina. Is she still there?
I was steady talking and I was on mute. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. When you were talking about the lion in the cage walking back and forth, and that's like us in our reactive mind going back and forth from past to present and battling, you know I tend to do that with myself sometimes. And it's a constant battle. It's a constant struggle until I'm able to just be in present time, just like that. But anyway, what helps me is to think as is. You know, whenever I'm struggling with the going back and forth with past experience and trying to relate that to the present, I have to check myself and remember as is, the as isness. So that really helps, because then I have to question myself. Okay, so it is what it is, and then I deal with it as it is. Yes, sir.
As you're talking, that going back and forth, L. Ron Hubbard talks about, he talks about the concept of the maybe. And the concept of the maybe is what locks us up, and we do nothing because we keep going back and forth. We can't make a decision on maybe. Either do it or don't do it.
And my going back and forth is mainly dealing with, you know, how I may feel about a person. See, and then I have to, you know, I think about what might have happened in the past, and I say, okay, and I'm thinking about that in the present, but then I have to say, okay, what is now? It is what it is. This is what is. And that makes everything, and that puts everything in perspective.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Ania, and then Sister Deborah.
Yes, sir. My comment was when, in regard to the Qibla from earlier, it took me to Pluto, and that the minister, I think in the lessons or maybe in Message to the Black Man, it says that Pluto, another name for one of the names of Pluto is Little Fool.
Yes.
And then also in the English lesson C1, number okay, number 25. Can the devil fool a Muslim? Not nowadays. And then, so that made me think about Pluto, and I know I've read about Pluto before, that it has an unusual orbit.
Yes.
Different from the other planets. It's inclined at a different angle, which I think is 17 degrees. I think it's 17. And then I've also heard that it kind of dips in and out of the orbit of some of the other planets.
There's sometimes when Pluto is the 9th planet, and there's another point in its rotation where it actually comes inside the orbit of Neptune. So there's a point in its orbit, it's actually the 8th planet, and Neptune is the 9th planet.
So I was relating that to what you were talking about, the minister, with, you know, people saying that he's changing the Qibla, and the fact that Pluto was discovered in 1929?
1930.
1930? Okay, which is the time that Master Fard Muhammad showed up, and in a sense changed you could say that he changed the Qibla from this old world, and put you know, and started the change over now to the direction that he was going to bring, of the teachings that he's bringing in to the world.
Yes, ma'am.
And then my other point was in regard to an experience with teachers long ago. In the British school system, it's a little different from here, where they have like your A students, and they classify you as an A student, B student, C student. And I was in the B class. No, I started off in the A class, and then was, if you're not doing well, rather than keep you there, they'll put you down into the B class, or if you need to, in the C class, so that you can keep up with the work. And so I got put down into the B class, and then got put back up into, for another term, I got put back up into the A class, and was having a problem with the instructor there, who obviously, at the time I didn't say that he didn't like Black people. I was the only Black in school, but I noticed whenever I raised my hand with a question, or if I didn't understand, would he go over it again? He would act very irritated in front of the whole class and explain it so quickly that I still didn't understand. And if I said again that I didn't understand, he would say, just see me after class. I don't want to, I'm not going to hold up the whole class just for you. And he would do this all the time. And so I started slipping back in my grades and ended up back in the B class.
Mhm.
And the teacher I had wouldn't accept me being there. He said, one term and you're going to be back up in the A class, you're going to stay there, which I did, but I never forgot that experience and how he handled me. So I related that, that came up again when you talked about that.
With regards to the enforced and inhibited ARC?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sister, is it Sister Deborah or Sister Deborah?
Yes, sir. It's Sister Deborah.
Okay, I just want to get it right, because I know I have an older sister, and if you call her Deborah, she gets kind of aberrated.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to speak on what Sister Tina spoke about, because I also struggle with the back and forth from past emotions. And I think a lot of it, some of it was through my childhood, but I think what's bothering me now, it's from past emotions from when I was going through a very painful divorce at the time. And so sometimes I struggle going back and forth with those past emotions. And I'd like to thank Sister Tina for what she said about staying in present time and looking at it for it is what it is. So I'd like to thank Sister Tina for that. And also I had a question on the recordings from last week. Did you send those out? Because I didn't get it.
I actually tried to send them out yesterday from work, and our internet connection is so slow I couldn't do it. So between today and tomorrow, I'm going to go down the list of everyone that has requested it and make sure everyone gets a recording of the different Zoom meetings.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Very well.
And also, would Saturday evening be an alternative to Wednesday? I did listen to you on Wednesday, and I literally had to work off the clock because I stopped working to try to take notes from the Wednesday morning class. And so I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work, because I literally had to stay and work off the clock to finish my work, because I just literally stopped working. I was so in tune to what you were saying. So I was wondering, is Saturday evening maybe an alternative to Wednesday? Just asking.
Okay, what I'll do is this. Everyone who is interested in perhaps getting together another class, send me an email, and I will try to get hopefully everyone into give like your first, second, and perhaps your third choice. And I will do the best I can to accommodate another class during the week. That won't be a problem. It's just because I've had different individuals requesting different times, and I would be doing a Zoom meeting every day, and I know that's definitely not possible. But whoever is interested, just send an email, and I will do my best to accommodate as many individuals as I can. I could probably possibly max at about maybe 2 or 3 meetings a week. But just send those emails and I'll organize something. I'll do the best I can.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Assalamualaikum.
Brother William.
Yes, sir, and family, I'll be very brief. I wanted to commend you in pointing out how associations help with our learning. As I traveled through medical school, I found that not having a lot of exposure and usage, I didn't have the requisite associations to make with the different and the new information that I was learning. So I encourage anyone, if you can make an association with some concept that cements it, that you're using on a regular basis, that's definitely gonna help. And then the last thing, I had an epiphany moment as you and sisters were talking about the going back and forth and used the word maybe. And in this class, I've been breaking words down, and maybe is the possibility of being, when we know that Allah says be and it is. There is no maybe with Allah. So I just thought I would offer that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And maybe is actually the imperfect tense. And our lessons tell us that we are supposed to speak past, present, and future tense being perfect.
Yes,
And
sir.
maybe is actually the imperfect tense. So you 1000% correct on that as well. Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Sister Anya, do you still have your hand up? Do you have another question?
No, sir.
Okay, okay. Well, family, we have Closing the Gap tonight at 8 o'clock. We have Supreme Technology Workshop tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I will strive to do a Wednesday morning. I will send an email out if I'm able to do so. And please feel free to send an email with regards to an additional meeting during the week. And I'll do the best I can to accommodate us in that other group. Now, are we saying another group just to deal with the mathematics, or another group to deal with Dianetics? Or maybe we should start putting a little mathematics and Dianetics together.
Yes, sir. I thought we were doing both.
Oh yeah, I think that might actually make things a little more interesting as well.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Brother Lukman,
yes.
the Supreme Technology Workshop is actually Tuesday at 10 o'clock.
Oh, I'm thinking today my whole weekend has been messed up with
Yes,
working extra shifts and working overtime. I'm thinking today's Monday.
yes, sir.
Never mind. I thank you for that one. Yeah, I messed my whole schedule's on overtime shifts, mess everything up.
Brother Lukman,
Yes,
when
ma'am.
you say Closing the Gap workshop, what workshop are you talking about?
There is a is Brother Aaron still on?
No, he stepped off, sir.
Okay. There is a workshop that they do Sunday morning at 8 o'clock a.m. and they do it Sunday evening at 8 o'clock. And I'm saying that it is phenomenal. I will.
Can you send the information?
Matter of fact, I'll put it right here in the chat. Let's see, it's 986-475-4829. That is the code for Closing the Gap. I don't, Brother Camille, is there a passcode for that? Brother Camille?
No, sir. No, sir. If you have the number, you can go right in under the Zoom.
Okay. So that's the number right there, Sister Pamela, 986-475-4829. That's Closing the Gap, Sundays, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And they get down the same way we do here, except they get down with Closing the Gap. So we got Closing the Gap on Sunday. We got the Dianetics. We got Handbook for Pre-Clears on Tuesday and Thursday. We got math on Wednesday, so we got enough to keep us busy. So when the minister departs, we just take the bread that we have and bring all our pieces of bread back together, and we feed off the loaf until he returns.
Right.
So with
Yes,
that,
sir. Thank you.
you're very welcome. So with that said and done, beloved family, I want to dismiss myself as I came before us in the nation, greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum. I look
Wa
forward
alaikum
to
salam,
seeing
sir.
everyone Tuesday.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Sir.
Sir, I put a link into the chat just now.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate
Now,
it.
if you hold on to that, they hold on to it, copy, and then you paste it. You hold on to copy and paste. That should get you right at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So make sure
Thank you,
everyone hits that. I'll keep the screen up a little bit longer after we make prayer. That way you can tag that, and I'm heading there myself. So inshallah, I'll see you there. So let's go ahead and brother President, can you close us out?
Yes, sir, most certainly. Please excuse me, I'll come off the camera so you can hear me clearly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
Let's assume the prayer. In the most holy name of God, most merciful. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, all praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of the world, the beneficent, the most merciful, Master of the day of judgment in which we now live. He alone do we serve, and we alone do we speak for that. Guide us on the right path, on the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, or those who go astray after hearing. Ameen.
Ameen.
Allahu Akbar.
Family.
Amen. Assalamu
Thank you,
alaikum. Thank you, Brother Luqman.
Thank you for coming. Thank
Thank you so much.
you. Very welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother.